Well, welcome everyone to Love versus Hate. My name is Anne, and I'm your old-fashioned nerd.
And I'm Emily, your mainstream millennial.
And on this podcast, Emily and I like to debate and argue about the things in life that we love and hate.
And although we rarely agree, we always try to find some common ground.
Yes. And speaking of ground, this isn't going to translate. It's fine. I'm running with it anyway. Speaking of ground, we're talking about, I was thinking breaking ground and like building a house.
We're talking about like all the different ways that millennials and nerds live.
Yeah. Okay.
So like either buying a house or renting an apartment or living at your parents'. No judgment here. We're talking about it all.
Yes.
And in case you didn't notice, I have a little bit of a cold. Don't worry, it's not coronavirus. I already checked. And it's also not strep because I already checked. We don't know what it is, but I'm just living through it.
Yeah, so she's just sounding weird.
Yeah, so that's what's going on here. But I have some exciting news because I'm building a house.
Yes, that's why I was thinking the groundbreaking thing. Have you broke ground?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yep. Like a week ago or so, we broke ground on our house, and it's going to be up and moving in ready in July. Which,
as of when we're recording this, is what?
It's March.
4 months away?
Yeah.
4 months.
That's crazy, right?
That's super weird. I'm super excited, though, because we've already talked about a room that we're going to dedicate to podcasting.
Yes.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to go through, like, our whole living situation since we, like, graduated from college. Because I feel like that's just, like, the best way to go about it. Because I've experienced all three things: living at a parent's house, living in an apartment. Well, I haven't experienced living in a house yet on my own, but I'm on my way there.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about Anne and her differences because she's a nerd.
Yeah. And, it might seem like kind of a boring topic, but like genuinely, this is like everyday common living, And also there is like a lot of new sort of trends that I feel like weren't the case of even, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Especially for millennials and how they live.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk about it. I don't know. I think it's something different. And listeners, I hope you enjoy as well.
Yeah. I feel like you'll get to know us a little bit more in this episode of just a little bit of our backstory and
who
how
are
we
we?
lived. Who is she?
Who is she? What's her story?
Yeah. So basically for me, after I finished college, I moved back to my parents' house for a couple months. But my parents live out in the middle of nowhere. So it was kind of annoying because I was like away from my friends, away from Alex, my boyfriend at the time, away from like my job. Like anywhere I wanted to go was at least a 30-minute drive.
So is that what pushed you to get your own place?
Yes. I was like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, hanging out with some chickens with poor internet.
Ooh.
I was living like a nerd.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the thing though. Like that was something that pushed me out of my parents' house was our internet is terrible there. Yeah. Not only that, this is going to sound really terrible, but another thing that pushed me out was like, when you graduate college, I feel like for a lot of people, unless you're really fortunate and you're able to like find a job like straight out of college or an internship and you already know in a month, like I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't for me. Like after college, I was like, well, what do I do now?
Right.
So yeah, I was like you. I was with my parents for a few months. And in that time, what pushed me out was not only the terrible internet, because, nerd over here, I need to be watching my shows and playing my games, but also like, I don't know why. I was super lazy. Like my mom would ask me the simplest thing, like, oh, can you like, take out the, clean the dishwasher, or like take the dishes out or empty the dishwasher. That's the verbiage.
Clean the dishwasher.
I know. I couldn't think of one. Empty the dishwasher, or hey, can you like vacuum? Or, she'd ask me the simplest things and I'd always be like, ugh, Mom.
How dare you make me do things when I'm living in your house for free?
I know. I was absolutely terrible. And that's also kind of pushed me to like, wow, like I should not be upset about this. Like my mom is asking me literally to do the simplest thing. Like, why is this upsetting me? And I was like, I need to leave. I just can't be around my parents like this. So that kind of pushed me out too. And really, the other third thing, that one, okay, I would say in order of what pushed me out, number one, which I have not mentioned, was I wanted a cat really bad. And my parents were like, we are not getting a cat. If you want a cat, you have to move out on your own and get your own place and buy your own cat. And I was like, okay. So that was number one. Number two was the internet. And then number three was like, I just didn't want to do the chores that my parents asked me to.
Oh my gosh.
Instead,
you wanted to pay rent so that you could do your own chores.
Yeah, exactly.
But at your own will.
Yeah, I know. It's exactly. That was the thing. You know, I didn't want to be told to do it. I would do it, you know, like I would do the chores. It was just the telling of it that was like, I was like, ugh, no. I'm a terrible person. I'm so bad. Mother, I love you and you're very dear to me and you've done so much for my life and I appreciate everything.
Wow. Yeah. I think for me, it was just the being far away from everyone and the internet because I love cleaning. As you know, if you haven't heard our cleaning episode, go check it out. I literally sang the Happy Working song from Enchanted, all about cleaning.
But she's not going to do it now because, you know, sore throat.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, I moved out of there. I went into the city and got this crappy apartment because a thing that I don't like about, like, renting apartments is if you don't want to have, like, a parent co-sign, you have to have, like, a minimum amount of living experience in apartments. Like, a lot of times it's like 2 years if you want to live in an apartment that you actually would like to live in.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the experience, but Alex didn't. And so we had to live in this crappy apartment in, like, the basement. Well, not the basement, but, like, we had one window or two windows in our apartment. And, like, it flooded. It was not good. But I was out of my parents' house in the city. So that was cool. Got to live with Alex. Learned a little about him. And then, yeah, I mean, I was like, I have to pay for my own groceries.
Yeah.
And electricity.
Yeah.
And water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really.
It's a harsh reality when you have to start paying for your own bills.
Adulting at its finest. Mm-hmm. Because the apartments at school when I was in college, like, you just paid rent and it was, like, super cheap because you were sharing it with, like, 3 or 4 other people.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Not that way when you're on your own.
And, like, you couldn't even, I mean, I didn't have very much extra money, so I couldn't even decorate it like how I wanted it. It was just whatever extra stuff that we had at our parents' house, we brought it to the apartment.
Oh, please. My apartment is still like that.
Hey, I still have a couch that we got from Alex's mom's boyfriend's mom or something. I don't even know where this couch came from. We have it.
I have a couch that was $20 at a, this is terrible, but, you know, it has to happen. There was a nursing home that was doing, like, a big sale. And that's where I got this couch. Oh. So it's an old grandma couch with, like, flower print. And, hey, it was $20 and it's a pull-out bed. And it's a really comfy couch. And it was, like, brand new. So I'm not complaining. It was $20.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of where you got to start out unless you have, like, a bunch of money just saved away that you can just spend on furniture and interior design. You kind of just got to put things together and hope for the best.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like it's not only a nerd and a millennial thing, but people like mismatch these days. That's, like, an in thing. You know, if it's, like, antique and kind of mismatched.
Like eclectic.
Yeah. Eclectic. That's the word.
Yeah. So after that, luckily I worked at Kohl's at the time, so I had, like, a discount and they have a home section there, so I would get, like, a few things here and there. But yeah, and then Alex and I went on, like, a 3-week vacation to Europe. So after our lease was over, we, like, just stopped, and then after we went on our vacation, we moved in with Alex's mom for, like, 2 years. I didn't even realize how long we were there.
Yeah, you guys, because I met you, like, the month before you left for Europe. So I only ever knew your living situation when we first met was Alex's parents.
Yeah.
Or his mom's house, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize, like, right before we recorded this episode, I looked. I was like, wow, we were there for 2 years. But I think the pandemic had a lot to do with it because, like,
yeah.
Right when the pandemic started, we were, like, looking to move out, but then the pandemic, and we're like, well, now we should probably just stay here because we don't know what's going to happen, like, with our jobs or anything.
Right.
But that was kind of nice because you could, like, we saved a bunch of money. I paid off my student loans while I was living there, so now I don't have any student loans. And we were able to save for our wedding, and now we saved for the house that we got. But you're also living under somebody else's roof. Like, for me, it's not my parents, so, like, I'm not a super outgoing person to just anyone.
But to our listeners who never see Emily's face, why not?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
But no, it was really fun and nice. And like I got to know his whole family really well. So overall, would recommend. Like, don't be afraid. I feel like a lot of millennials are living at their parents' house.
Honestly, it's a big thing. Like, it used to be, nerd in the closet kind of thing. Like, yeah, living in your parents' basement. But it's very common. And mostly because we kind of got screwed over when it comes to, like, minimum wage and the economy and where it's at and how expensive college is now.
Yeah.
Like, my parents were able to work full-time summer jobs and pay for half, if not all of their college. Because that's just the way the world was last, 30 years, 40 years ago. Well, not 30? I don't know. A while ago.
Yeah.
But for millennials, minimum wage hasn't changed. The economy's not super great. And college is really expensive. And so we're in debt. We go, we start our jobs and we're just in debt, but we're not getting paid enough to, one, barely live. So, like, how are we supposed to get out of debt if we're barely getting paid enough to even pay rent in the first place?
And also, like, there's so many newer apartments now that, like, they're really expensive.
Yes. The cost of living has gone up significantly. Yeah. So living at your parents is reasonable.
Yeah. Do not feel ashamed. Like,
no.
Go live there. Save that money.
Yeah. And be nice to your parents if they ask you to do a simple chore.
And
I know. Don't be like me. That will not be my life lesson is to not do what I did. Be thankful.
Yeah. Okay. So after I lived there for like 2 years, it was a little more into the pandemic and we're like, okay, I think we're okay. Like, we can move out now. So Alex and I moved into an apartment about like a month or two before we got married. And it was like a newer apartment building. So it was like a way upgrade from our last apartment. We're like on the top floor. We got windows now. We got so many windows. Like, super nice.
Yeah, and it's on the corner too. I love corner apartments. That might be my life lesson. I'm going to give a lot of life lessons in this episode. Ooh. Get an apartment that's on the corner because then you get windows on both walls.
Yes.
Super nice.
Yeah, it is really nice.
A little more expensive, but super nice.
And also, our apartment has like a pool and a pool table. Like, what?
Amenities.
So yeah, now we're here. And Anne's at an apartment too.
Yeah, I've pretty much, after I moved out of my parents, I've only ever apartment lived. I definitely can't afford a house right now. I would like to be able to have a house, but the first apartment I was in was a studio, which wasn't bad, but it just wasn't in a good, it was kind of like you were saying, it was like cheap. I was in the basement. It never flooded, but I had a serious ant problem. Yeah. And I told them about it and they were like, oh yeah, we'll send people, we'll get it fixed. They never got it fixed. And like the carpet was not attached. Like it was like, I could just peel it right off. It was like a rug. It was disgusting. And that's why I had an ant problem, I think. Cause like the ants, like you would just watch them crawl under the carpet. Like you just watch them crawl out from there. And it was like, yeah, it was really gross. So that wasn't great. And yeah, I've been in a few apartments now. And really, it's not that bad. I don't mind it. I don't mind apartment living. I'll probably be in an apartment for a while. Yeah, it's fine. There's not a whole lot. I bet a lot of our listeners probably also live in apartments, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's become super common. It's weird. The one weird thing is when I was a kid, I mean, I grew up in a house. I was really fortunate in that. And so like, I always found apartment living so weird. Like, who lives in apartments? Like, that's weird. But now I'm like, oh, everybody lives in an apartment and it's not weird at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a new thing as a kid.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't know what apartments were until I got to college.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I knew of them.
Yeah,
but
I knew that there were these buildings that people lived in separately and I don't know, it was like this weird thing, but like I didn't actually really know anybody who lived in them until I got to college.
Exactly.
And then I was like, I live in an apartment.
Yeah. And I'm like, only single people live there.
Yeah.
Which is not true, but
yeah.
But you know what the new thing is? This is such a millennial thing, I think. And it's very unique, in my opinion. And I think it's kind of new. Maybe it's not. It seems new to me, but it's the whole like Viridian homes idea, right? Where you like have a neighborhood that's completely laid out. Everything's very specific. You have like, what do they call them? Like neighborhood, like you have to meet certain guidelines.
Yeah.
It's like there's a word for it.
Yeah, there's like a neighborhood association or something.
Yes, yeah.
I can't remember the right word, but yeah, basically there's like a neighborhood association and there's rules like your lawn can't get this long, or you have to have this amount of trees in your backyard that follow these guidelines, or you can't park this kind of stuff in your driveway, which some of that stuff is just ridiculous. Like, excuse me, I'm paying for this house. This is my property. So you cannot tell me if I can park a camper in my driveway or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're these, and it's all for the look of the neighborhood. Like they want the neighborhood to look really nice.
Like you can't have the same color house as your neighbor. It needs to be 7 houses difference, or like whatever. There's just so many rules.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And yet they also have these basically like templated houses that are nice. They're nice, but they're like they literally have like 5 styles, and they're like, you pick, and then we build it in like 4 months. And it's just like, well, what?
Yeah, so that's what I am doing. So Alex and I are going through a builder. Our builder is Viridian Homes, and they basically, you just pick a floor plan, and then you get to pick everything that goes inside it. Like you get to pick how tall your cabinets are, what color they are, what color the floor is, if you have carpet, what carpet, and where is the carpet going, like your lighting. Like you literally pick everything.
Yeah, I don't know who came up with this ingenious idea, but I do think it's genius because you're getting a customized feel. But like I said, it's still like templated. So they can put it up really quickly. They know all of these like options. Like it's all laid out for you. But for you, it's a custom build.
Yeah, like it's super easy because they already have all of the partnerships with like the window people, the builders, the electricians, like everybody they already have. So you don't really have to do anything except for meet with the interior designer and the builder and like your main project manager person, just to like make sure that they have everything that they need, and then they just do all the rest of the work. So it's actually like super nice and like super easy.
And I know a few people actually who have been doing this. Like it's become a very common thing.
I know, like a lot of times you think that it's like people in their 30s or like who've already established a family who are building these houses, but no, like my friends, like I have 3 friends that I know who are building. Your age. Yeah. Who are building. And I'm like, dang, every person I talk to, I feel like it's like, oh yeah, I'm building a Viridian home. And I'm like, what? Me too.
Yeah, it's become a very common thing. Which again, like I said, I think it's a newer idea, but whoever came up with it's really smart. Because even my aunt and uncle who are a little bit older, like I don't know, there's probably a word for like this type. All I know is like Viridian, but I'm assuming that's the specific company. Yeah. But yeah, they did something very similar where there's like a neighborhood association. They have very specific rules that they had to follow. And their house could only be so tall because they wanted to preserve like the view, like all of these rules. Yeah. But it's still, they're nice homes and they're very customizable. So and that's, I think, ultimately what people want. Like when you're building a home, you want to be able to like choose those things. And so to have an option where you're like getting to do that is really exciting. Because otherwise, most people are just buying a home. They're not necessarily building one. Like,
Yeah, that was something that we looked into, is just like buying a home that's already built. But like a lot of the times what we saw was like there wasn't very much selection, and when there was any that were for sale, like they were really old and you would need to make renovations to them. Mm-hmm. So like the cost was still around the same price as like a house that you would build, but then you would also have to put on top all the renovation prices. Right. So we're like, why not just build a house from scratch that's completely ours? Yeah, that we get to make the choices. It's a brand new home. Yeah, and you get to make all the choices. The only bad thing about the Viridian or like the home building process is like a lot of time, like you might go into it thinking that like whatever you want, like your cabinet, whatever cabinet color you want will be included, and like the hardware on the cabinets will be included. It's not included. Like you want taller cabinets? Nope, that's an upgrade of like $2,000. You want hardware on your cabinets? Oh, that's $15 per lever or whatever. Wow. You want whatever, it's probably going to cost you more. Like, you get the basic stuff, but then you can also upgrade. And a lot of times you're going to want to do the upgrade. So,
right, but the upgrade's much more expensive. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, what do you want to do now that makes sense to like structural things you want to do now. But then like we're not doing a backsplash in our kitchen because it just costs a lot and we can probably do it ourselves. And like our kitchen counters, we're just doing laminate because we might upgrade in the future. Yeah. Because it's just a lot right now. And like we don't want to add like thousands of dollars onto our mortgage because that's a lot in interest. Yeah. There's a lot that like I had no idea about, like that you learn. All this like interest rates and then PMI. I don't even remember if that's a word or I don't know. There's just so much that I learned. I'm like, huh? What?
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, PMI is a type of loan. I'm pretty sure it's like your first home, like home. If it's your first home you're ever buying, you can get certain loans. I think PMI or something like that.
Yeah, it's something where like once you like if you don't put 20% down, once you pay interest until you get to the 20% is like PMI. I don't know. Yeah, there's just all this stuff that you have to learn when you go into this process.
And ultimately, it all just leads to my, third or fourth life lesson. You know, just stay at home with your parents. It's easier. Way cheaper, easier. Just be thankful. And yeah, I guess that's...
Yeah, stay at home, save money. Like, yeah, a lot of people I find that like who stay at home too are like, oh, I don't have any rent to pay. I don't have any like stuff to pay. So I'm going to spend it all on like clothes or games or going out with my friends and doing all this stuff. Like you have to think about what you want in your future too. That's my life lesson. Yeah. It's like if you do live at home, think about like what you can do with the money that you're saving.
Yes, wise. Yeah, and you know what? Nerds, you don't have to, I know that seems like a typical nerd thing is to be living with your parents, but it's a millennial thing. Yeah. So be empowered by that. Also be empowered. If you want to get your own place, that's okay. You know what the nice thing about being a nerd and having your own place is you can decorate it with all the awesome nerd stuff that you have.
Yeah, there is so much. Like, I never realized how much, like, stuff nerds have. Like, if you go, like, nerds at Anne's house, like, she's got a bookshelf and she's got, like, more, like, I don't even know what they're called. Just, like, little things. Knickknacks.
Yeah, knickknacks.
Just kidding. Yeah, that's probably not true, but there's just so many little knickknacks that I think are so cool. That's why I feel like buying gifts for nerds is kind of like more fun because there's so many knickknacks and like little opportunities that you can get for nerds.
And they're going to love it. That's the other thing. Shopping for nerds is the easiest thing. Like literally you could get me a pair of $10 D&D dice and I'd be like, oh, thank you. Like I would love that. Like we're so easy. We're so easy to shop
Whereas
for.
Millennials, you're like, do they like this scent? Yeah. Do they already have this?
Or or like, I don't know, do they like this style? Is this going to match what they already have? Yeah. Nerds don't care about that. We want the cool nerd thing and we don't care if it matches anything. I am so excited, guys. Someday I'm going to build a D&D room. Eventually I would like to have a house someday, and when I do, I'm going to make a game room. It'll be for like all games, but it's going to be D&D themed. I'm so excited. I think it'll be cool. I'm already trying to like stock up on like things that I can put in it. Like I bought, Emily and I actually were together. We were Goodwill shopping. And I found this like chest for it was like $8. And it was just this cute little chest. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this would look perfect on a bookshelf in my D&D room.
Wait, did you buy it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I totally forgot about it.
Yeah. it's what holds a bunch of my D&D stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Like my extra dice and my cards. And yeah, there's a lot that I have. And my grandma is amazing. And she is like, for her whole life, she's been an antiquer. And she's got a country house and a townhouse that is all just filled. She used to have school buses filled with just like junk because that's what she would like antique and like find curbside, and that's her whole life she's been doing that. And she's got the coolest stuff. And every time I go to her house, I'm like, ooh, like that's super cool. I might take that. Like I'm just so excited to like. And every time we go there, she's always telling us to take stuff because she's like, I got to get rid of all of this. So like she'll always just like let us take stuff. And so I'm like, half of my room will be stuff for my grandma because she's just got awesome stuff. She's super cool.
Yeah.
So listeners, no matter what your living situation, know that it's okay. You know, if you're at your parents', if you're in a bad apartment, if you're in a really nice apartment that maybe is too expensive and you need to move again, if you're in a house, if you're, you know, it doesn't matter. It's if you're living with, you know, 3 other roommates to just make sure you can pay for the rent, you know, it's all okay. And it doesn't mean that you're going to stay that way. You know, maybe you'll have an opportunity to do something different and unique, or I don't know, but it's all fine.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you're a nerd or millennial. Everybody has different living situations.
Yeah. And I think the overall message here is just live at your parents' house as long as you can.
Save money. We apologize, parents. I don't know how parents feel about, you know, this, about all of their kids living with them, but I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, some parents are like, oh, I love you. Stay here forever. And some are like, when
out.
are you getting out? I was only supposed to have you for 18 years.
I wasn't planning for your entire life. But Emily, I know we've given a few life lessons, but what is your ultimate final life lesson that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think my ultimate life lesson is to don't feel pressured by like what your friends are doing. Like if they're buying a house or if they're living in a really nice apartment, like don't feel pressured by what other people around you are doing because you have a different situation than everybody else. So just do what's best for you and don't worry about what anybody else is doing or thinking.
I agree wholeheartedly.
What about you, Anne?
I would also say, you know, we didn't really touch on it, but who's that woman that, you know, talks about joy and like finding joy in everything that you own and minimalism and what?
Marie Kondo?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. You know, I get that because I do think it's important to not like clutter your life with things you don't need. So that would be my life lesson. Like, don't necessarily over-clutter your life with things you don't need. But also, if there's some nerd thing out there or maybe some certain millennial style or if there's something out there that genuinely gives you joy, it's okay to have it, you know? Sometimes, like, we don't necessarily want to, like, splurge on ourselves, but as long as you are being responsible, it's okay to have those things.
Yes. And go to the thrift store and see if it's there first.
Yes. Thrift store shopping. Yeah, that's my ultimate life lesson. Go to the thrift store and rummage sale first because you'll find really unique, cool things and it's going to be way cheaper.
And it's more fun.
Yeah. Even if you're a millennial and you want like that thing that matches, mismatch is in. So just run with it.
So mismatch.
Yeah.
And DIY.
What did you say?
DIY?
No. It's eclectic.
It's a click.
It's eclectic.
It's electric.